It's Father's Day, and here on the Jersey Magazine, I'm bringing in three of my favorite DHA dads. I have Ed Silver. He's the Vice President and Director of Sales. I have Scott Kohlhepp. He is the Director of Marketing and Promotions. And Mike Anthony. I love your title, Creative Services Director. And Mike is also, of course, the afternoon drive host. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Jersey Magazine.
Good morning, Kim.
Ed, I'm going to start with you. What's the best part about being a dad?
The highlights, the base hit in Little League that wins a game, the graduations, the report cards, all the achievements that either you didn't get for yourself when you were their age, and you're, quite frankly, you're living through them now.
Right. Mike, I'll ask you the same question. Best part about being a dad?
I feel like it's sometimes the little things, actually. I agree with Ed, but sometimes those little things hit you where it's like, you know, mine are 9 and 6. So they'll come up to me when I get home from work and they're like, Dad, we missed you. I love you so much. And that feels so good to hear, you know?
Yeah, by the time they get to my kid's age and Ed's age, that is long gone, by the way. Oh, you're home? I didn't even know you were gone.
Yeah.
Scott, same question. Best part for you about being a dad?
I mean, mine is kind of a combination of the two. It's kind of the growth, I would say. Seeing, I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and seeing how the 6-year-old has grown, gone through school. He's a big baseball player now, and kind of knowing what he was back then, and also having a glimpse of it with my 2-year-old to remind me of how my 6-year-old was when he was 2, has been just very rewarding. That he just graduated kindergarten last week, and just that kind of progression, that growth.
Ed, you mentioned, that Little League base hit, and the other night, I spent the spring as the pitching coach at Jonathan Dayton High School in Springfield, and the other day we lost in the state sectional to one of our close rivals. And at the end of the game, I watched one of the seniors hugging his brother, and his mom turned to me and she said, "This is worse than graduation." And my wife had come to the game, and I said, we were there 3 years ago. It's the finality of it. All of a sudden, like, school, he's going to go on to school. There's always that next step. For this kid, it probably is the last time he's going to play baseball. And it's that finality that all of a sudden just smacks you in the face, that dose of reality.
Absolutely. Two things pop in mind quickly. My oldest is 21 and just graduated from college. And that is absolutely surreal. I know you've been through that, but you talk about the moments, and a lot of the moments that I remember the best really didn't have to do with athletic prowess or achievement. My younger son, who's now 19, was the second string goalie on the Hillsborough High School ice hockey team that went to the state championship. And I remember thinking, he, other than warm-ups, he didn't get to be on the ice at the arena up in Newark. I wonder if that's going to leave a sad memory for him or a happy memory for him. And after the game, we're driving home. He says, well, at least I got to open the bench door in the same arena that Martin Brodeur and Henrik Lundqvist played in. So even when they're not big athletic successes, just some of the memories and some of the stories are going to last a lifetime.
And Mike, you hit on a really important thing. I think you come home from work and your kids are 9 and 6. So they're still kind of at that innocent stage, and that, hey, Dad, you're back, and you get that hug. There's no other feeling in the world like that.
There's really not. It's just, everyone talks, you heard about it before you have kids, that like the love you have for them is just immense, and it's tremendous, and it's unexplainable. And it's like, I didn't really get what that meant. And then now, feeling that feeling when I walk through the door and they're hugging me, I'm like, oh, this is what it's all about. Like, I would do anything to feel this feeling, Scott,
you had your most recent child, 2. Your son rather is 2 years old. So you have the most recent experience with this. When you have your first kid, not everything changes immediately because your wife's at the hospital probably. And for you, it's just a night at home alone. The next thing you know, you bring the child into the house, and all of a sudden it's like, Okay, now what? Because there's no owner's manual with this. Describe that feeling, since you're the one who had it most recently. Describe what that feeling was like for you.
So the first one was a lot more of a celebration when he came home. My first one was born 6 weeks early. So he had to spend time in the NICU down at the hospital in Red Bank, which is where he was born, which both my sons were born at. And so after those 10 days in there, he was born April 12th. He came home April 22nd. It was like a celebration of like, thank God he's home. So I think a lot of his early part of his life and the early changes were kind of defined by that, of like just being so appreciative that first year of having him home and having him around the house. My second one, it just kind of it enforces I would say a tornado hit the house. Because obviously the oldest is looking for attention. My second one was born, and we obviously had to deal with making sure we're paying enough attention to the 4-year-old and making sure that the newborn baby was okay. And then on top of that, my youngest was born in the fall of 2019. We all know what the spring of 2020 brought. So it was very unique too, of being not stuck, but having been home in the house with at that point a 4-year-old and a newborn, and kind of going through the dynamics of that.
Father's Day here on the Jersey Magazine at 105.5 WDHA. I'm Jim Monaghan, and 3 DHA dads, Ed Silver, Scott Kohlhepp, Mike Anthony. I'll ask each of you the same question now. What's the most frustrating part about being a dad? Ed?
It is without a doubt when you ask your kids for weeks and months and years, just do your little chores around the house. It's not complicated. It's not hard work. You're not going to break a sweat. And I believe when they say, we got you, we're going to do it, I believe they mean it at the time. But through the years, whether it's going off to play a sport, or whether it's Xbox, or whether it's whatever it is, it's amazing. All I want you to do is bring the garbage can in. Get it out of the street before I get home from work. You could pretty much sleep all day. Bring the garbage can out of the street. And I come back from work 10 hours later, and the garbage can is there. You drove past it 7 times. You walked past it 7 times. The basketball hit it. How can you not remember? So I become the nagging father. It's like me asking you right now, can you do me a favor? Pick up that pen and put it down. It's as simple as that to us, right? But it's almost as though their whole world, I'm jealous because they have so many activities and so many things they want to do. But the frustration of asking the same minor thing over and over and over, from the ages of when they can first walk to post-college, that's the most frustrating.
Mike Anthony, you have one who's about to turn double digits. You have a 9-year-old daughter. What's the most frustrating part for you?
Well, it's funny because I could so relate to what Ed had just said, just trying to instill in them, whether it's brush your teeth, pick up this wrapper off the floor, it goes in the garbage, that kind of thing. So I get that completely. But for me, it's funny because it's almost like I said how when I get home from work, they run to me, say, I love you and I miss you and that whole thing. And it's great. However, as you just said, I have one turning 10, my daughter, and it was literally about a week and a half ago. I was just talking to her in a generic basic conversation. And I said something like, oh, thanks, babe. I'll talk to you in a little bit. And she was like, Dad. And I'm like, what? She goes, don't call me babe. And I'm like, what do you mean don't call you babe? She's like, my name's Chloe. And I'm like, I can't call you babe anymore. She's like, that's so cringy, Dad. And I'm like, is this what I'm going to deal with now? I can't call my daughter babe. So that was, it's a little frustrating. It's a little hard to watch them kind of grow up and develop, because it's like, you want that to happen. That's going to happen. But at the same time, you're like, can you just stay this certain age and not let these things change you?
Scott, I'll ask you the same question.
Most frustrating for me, obviously, with the young kids is still dinner time. The fact that a meal that is a home run one day might be thrown at me the next. And I still have kids at that age, that there's just the inconsistencies that you can expect with that. And then obviously, my wife works at a Morristown hospital. She's not home at in the evening sometimes, but when she is home, I'm a second class citizen to my kids. It's like, no, get away, dad. We just want mommy all the time. So that as well, to not being able to, if one child needs more support from my wife, not being able to convince the second one, like, oh, he's with mommy tonight, you're with me. No, they both have to be with mommy.
For me, and Ed, you may have have had the same experience. Our kids are roughly the same age. My oldest is in her early 30s. My middle daughter, she graduated college a year ago, and then I have a son who is about to graduate in a year and a half or so. I think for me, it was and continues to be letting go. You know, there's the story when you teach your kid how to ride a bike and you're holding on to the bike and you let go. And, you know, the kid, like, you have to let them go. And I think as they get older, that for me is probably the most frustrating thing is you have to let them go. You have to let them make their own mistakes. As hard as that can be to watch, I think for me, that's been the most frustrating part about being a dad. As much as I love it, that's the one that hits home for me.
Other than rooting for the New York Rangers, there is nothing that has the highs and lows of being a father. It can be something small that makes you as a dad feel like $1,000,000. It could be something cute when they're little. You know, my son Jake is 19, and you know we still call him Jakey. Not quite babe, but Jakey. And yeah, he probably gets some comfort in that, but also, you know, that's not, you know, too cool to be in college and working and be called Jakey. But the high moments are incredible. The lows, when my son took a cheap shot in a hockey game and broke his jaw, when they struggle in school, when they ask somebody for, you know, the first girl they ask for a date and they get a no, their first experience. That stuff is like you got punched in the stomach and kicked in the chest at the same time. But, you know, it's amazing how when our parents said, I hope you have kids just like you someday, you know, that kind of comes true, number one. And I got to tell you something, I have never appreciated my parents more than I do after becoming a dad.
If it's any consolation, and Michael, refer back to your daughter saying, don't call me that. A few years ago, Patty Scalfa, aka Mrs. Bruce Springsteen, came here to DHA. She was a guest on All Mixed Up. And we got talking about being a parent and the whole, Mom, Dad, you're embarrassing me. And she laughed and she told a story how when she and Bruce, when their kids had friends come over to the house, Bruce would be singing around the house. And the kids would say, Dad, stop singing. You're embarrassing me. Now, go to a show and it's like, yeah, that's my dad. Around the house, hey, Dad, cut it out. You're embarrassing me. Let me ask you, this is kind of an off-the-cuff question. Who's your favorite TV dad? Ed, I'll start with you. Favorite TV dad?
You may have to end up with me because for entertainment purposes, it's Mr. Costanza. Would I want Mr. Costanza to be my dad? Certainly not. I was watching a video clip the other day of that 70s show. And I think the father's name was Red or something like that. But, you know, there are times indeed where your kid just does something so stupid that you've told them not to do that, you know, the kid tells you the story and you say, I could have told you that, dumbass. And which is what he affectionately calls all his kids. Doesn't mean you don't love them, doesn't mean you don't support them. So I'll say all the dads that were painfully honest, but did so with love.
Mike, same question. Favorite TV dad?
I don't know if I have a favorite. One that sticks out to me is, if you're familiar with the show Modern Family, the guy who plays Phil Dunphy. He's kind of goofy, silly, and that kind of thing, but everything he does is out of love. So, he's gotten that, like, those cringe moments where the kids don't want to be around him. He's also gotten the love and affection. And I think that's kind of like me, like just trying to be goofy and silly and have fun, teach them the right way and all that stuff, and hope that they want to be around you.
Scott, same question. Favorite
I
TV
mean,
dad?
certainly not somebody to emulate, but the one that pops in my head is always going to be Homer Simpson, as I grew up with him. And then off the top of my head too, like make sure I'm trying not to be, even when my anger's at the height, don't be like Tony Soprano was with his kids. So
Interesting that you mentioned Tony Soprano, because there's a dad moment, and I forget the episode, but Tony and Carmelo are having an issue with Meadow. Gee, there's a surprise. But Meadow and she's forcing them to let go, and they don't want to let go. And they're talking to each other, and I forget whether it's Carmelo says to Tony or vice versa, that she's in charge. And I think it was Carmelo who said that. And Tony said, yeah, but we can't let her know that. It's one of my favorite Soprano quotes. I think for me, it would probably be Ray Romano's character. Everyone Loves Raymond, because of the chaos that surrounds all of the various characters. And maybe Eric Taylor, the coach in Friday Night Lights. And there's one scene in particular. If you're not familiar with the show, he, of course, is a coach and a dad, and his wife is in the school administration, and something comes up. And so in her role as the school administrator, he asks her a question, and he doesn't like the answer that he gives her. So he says, all right, now let me talk to my wife. And he asks her the same question. And again, she gives an answer in the role as wife that he doesn't want to hear. And he looks at her and he goes, is there anybody else here I can talk to? And I have that feeling sometimes, like, all right, I'm not getting the answer that I'm looking for here from you guys at all. Can somebody else help me out here? So that would probably be my two favorites. Ed, favorite place to hide as a dad? Just, I need to get away for 30 seconds. Favorite place in the house to hide?
30 seconds, man cave. 3 hours, golf course.
Mike Anthony.
Too much information, but 30 seconds to 10 minutes, bathroom.
And Scott, I'll ask you the same question.
I was going to say 30 seconds to go to my own bedroom, and like I had 3 hours trying to find a golf course.
Ed Silver, Scott Kohlhepp, Mike Anthony, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning here on the Jersey Magazine with some dad stories, and happy Father's Day to all three of you.
Happy Father's Day to you guys.
Happy Father's Day, guys.
Happy Father's Day.